Paige, I'm so excited to have you on the Shine and Thrive Photography podcast. Cannot wait to connect with you. Just checking out your work and everything that you stand for, believe in, and love empowering other photographers with. I'm just like, oh my God, this is gonna be such a good episode. I cannot wait to share all of your knowledge and energy with my listeners. So yeah, huge welcome.
Oh my gosh, Sarah, thank you so much. I'm so incredibly equally excited to be here. I know we're gonna have a blast.
Yay. And I always go with the flow with like guests on different episodes and start off every episode differently and intuitively. And just from kind of getting to know your story a little bit, I'm like, okay, everybody needs to hear your story, your journey. So yeah, please like let us know a little bit about how you started off, in this kind of space where you said you were like drowning in a lot of confusion and even having panic attacks when writing rent checks, which I'm sure so many people can relate to that, right? So I think that's just so powerful. And I love how vulnerable you are with that and open with it, because it just will help people see what's possible for them, because then you led yourself to transforming and being able to pretty much polish off your main offer that you felt so aligned with in your business and charge like a really incredible, profitable price for it. So please share your story. Take us on that journey of your transformation.
Oh, thank you so much. Yes, it was definitely, building a business is such a special journey, I think. And I really do believe that it's like it's really a journey of inner work to see transformation in your outer world, right? And there was a lot of struggle along the way. And I always wanted to be transparent about that, because especially like on Instagram, where we see everything in its final, polished, perfect form, and it never looks that way when we're getting there. So I always wanted to be really open about like the struggles that I kind of went through. When I was starting my business, and this was well, I say many years ago, probably like 7 or 8 years ago, not quite a decade. I was actually starting in weddings. I was doing weddings and family shoots at the time. And I was maybe like year 2 of my business. And I ended up going through a divorce, which was very, very scary, because year 2 of my business, I made like $9,000. It was not a lot of money. It was not enough money to live on anywhere, especially not in Los Angeles. And I was having a freak out moment. I had no idea if I was going to be able to really, lift off with this business. And so I felt like I had kind of a couple of options. I could go back to the 9 to 5 that I had left a couple of years earlier, that I really didn't want to go back to. As much as I loved being a journalist and an editor, it was no longer the right fit for me. And I just, working for somebody else again, like I just couldn't quite get into that mode of like, okay, fine, like a 9 to 5. So I knew my second option was my only option, which was figure out how to run a business and do it successfully so that I could support myself and actually do the things I wanted to do. And I would love to say that I figured out how to do that overnight. I absolutely did not. It took maybe four years at least, to really figure out how to be consistent in sales, be consistent in offers and marketing and promotion, and understanding what it is to exist as a brand in the market and how to speak to the people that I really wanted to speak to. And the turning point started to come around 2018, when I switched fully into brand photography as my only offering. And before then, it had really been, like a month to month, how am I going to pay rent? Having a panic attack some days because it's the 31st of the month and I don't yet have the money to pay my bills. What am I going to do? Feeling like, oh my God, I'm such a failure. Oh my gosh, did I make the wrong decision? Just one of those things where I just had complete doubt and like worry and anxiety almost all of the time. Like I just lived in that state. Which really does a number, not just on your mental health, but on your physical health too, after a while. And so when I switched into brand photography, there weren't a ton of models of how to offer brand photography, charge brand photography, and the market was still learning even what that meant for creative entrepreneurs. So I had that uphill challenge, along with figuring out how to distinguish myself and be like, not only do you need brand photos, but I'm your person to do it. Right. So it was a really long, I would say the first 8 months of that switch, I barely made any money still. And I was still freaking out because at the top of the year, at the top of 2018, I decided I'm going to transition into this. I'm going to set my prices. I'm not going to accept anything less than them. And I'm going to show up every single day for a year. And I'm going to talk about brand photos, photography, art, branding. And at the end of a year, if I've shown up every single day and nothing has come of it, then okay, I'll find something else. But no matter what, for this year, I'm going to do it, even if nobody's on the other end of it. And some days, many, many days, there was nobody on the other end of it. So it took a while of really just being sure that like, this is my path. This is what I'm meant to do. And by month 8, I had my first 5-figure month in my business ever. And I was like, okay, I'm doing the thing. I did it. Like it's something's happening. I need to keep going.
Did you say by year 8 or by month? Was it by month 8?
Sorry. Good question.
Okay.
By month 8.
Month 8. Okay. Yeah.
That is a really good point. When I switched into brand photography in 2018, the first 8 months of that were really scary. And I was only incrementally making money. And then by August of that year, I finally had my first 5-figure month.
Wow.
And I finally started feeling like, okay, this is something I can build on. This is something I can turn into something. And so from there, it just kept building and building and building. So, it took a really long time though to learn all of that. So part of my mission is to help people not have to stay in that struggle forever, right? Like don't spend the 4 or 5 years that I spent worrying about rent and trying to figure out how to make money. Like I really want to shorten that process for everybody.
Wow, that's incredible. Thank you for sharing. I can so relate to this. And I feel like because you said you started your business, was it 7 or 8 years ago?
Yeah, it was 2014. So what is that? That's 7, almost 8 years ago.
It's almost 8 years. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, yeah, I started my business 10 years ago. And I feel like just like when you were starting your business, it was still that kind of like cusp of where social media wasn't too present, or like we couldn't take advantage of it just as much as we can today. So it's kind of like a slower build. And plus I didn't know how to even find other photographers to connect with and like learn from.
Yeah.
So I felt so alone in the journey. So
yeah,
is that kind of what you also experienced? Like kind of feeling alone and like literally figuring out every step by yourself?
Yeah, for a long time, I was, not only did I feel alone, but I felt really scared to ask, right? Like I knew that there were people who knew more than I did, but I wasn't sure like who to go to, who to learn from. I got really lucky around late 2016, 2017. Behind the scenes, as I was making that whole switch into brand photography, I was still trying to close the gap in like how much money I was making and how much money I needed to make to pay my bills. So I was assisting on the weekends. I was assisting a wedding photographer who's amazing and makes some of the most beautiful photos you've ever seen. And so I assisted her for about almost 18 months. I rolled her film and it was just the most incredible learning experience. Like you can see around that period, my work really changed and improved too because of everything I was learning from her. So that I think was the biggest boon. Like when I felt like I don't know where to go learn from, I don't know who to ask for help, I thought, okay, maybe I can assist and learn the thing.
Yes.
And it worked out really well.
Totally. Oh my gosh. I love that. Okay. One thing that I admire that you shared about in your story is that something happened in your mind. There was like a switch where you're like, you know what? I'm giving myself 1 year. I'm going to go all in. I'm going to believe in myself for a year. I'm going to experiment for a year. I'm going to show up when no one's listening. And holy shit, that can be scary to do. Right. So like, what caused you to have that switch? Because, it could either have been, I don't know, you share with me what caused that kind of like mindset switch for you.
I love this because I can pinpoint it to an exact conversation. I was sitting with a client who was also a friend, and she was talking to me. We were planning her brand photo shoot, and we were talking, and she goes, "I just love that of how much you believe in what you're doing." And in my head, I thought, yeah, even when I don't believe in myself. And in that moment, I was like, oh, that's the key to it. I'm so clear that as artists, we're not supposed to struggle. We're not supposed to be starving artists. And I believe in that so strongly that our purpose here on earth is to really like fulfill a creative purpose for so many people. I believe in that so strongly that I keep focused on that, even on the days when I'm like, I don't know if I can do this. So yeah. I try to make it that takes me out of like the mindset dip, because there's never like a straight line up for us, right? Like we're never like always feeling better and better. Like it kind of is like a roller coaster. So even on those days when I'm dipping, I'm also just feeling like, okay, but there's a bigger thing here that's a bigger force than me, and I'm going to show up and participate in it, even when I feel like I'm failing at it some days.
I love that so much. So, okay, for someone who it needs maybe more logical proof points that the path that they are on is working, because I know that so many feel stuck to maybe quit their full-time job because they're like, well, I don't have the full-time income yet, but maybe if they quit, they'll have the time to invest in their business and then create that full-time income, right? It's like this whole, everything is interconnected. So like what advice would you give to someone who is kind of like in that stage of limbo where they're not really seeing results yet, and all you want to do is shake them and be like, but literally if you take consistent actions for the next 5 months, 6 months, you will get that first 5-figure like month, or whatever that means, whatever they're looking for, right? Like what advice would you give them on the days where they are literally working and there are no results that they are seeing right in front of them?
Oh, so this is my favorite, because I have to do this even after feeling like I've had so much success. I still have those exact same days where I'm like, am I even doing anything? So actually on those days, I ask myself, like, what would 16-year-old me think of what I'm doing today? And 16-year-old me would be like, what do you mean you're a full-time artist in a huge city making 6 figures, doing what, like being happy every day and like doing the things that you love? Like I never would have thought when I was 16 that I would get to be living a life like this. So on the days when I feel like nothing's happening, or I feel like I've messed something up, or like I'm not doing something right, I just try and think back to like, what did 16-year-old me expect of my life, and how like I have so far exceeded those expectations. And a lot of times that brings things into perspective and kind of brings it back to like, I have done things, I have changed my life. Because sometimes like that expansion, that growth, it's so small, it's so incremental that like we can't
even see it. Like,
right?
But really we have to take a pause to reflect. And then we're like, oh my God, I did all of this in the last month or in the last year, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And if you ever feel fully in doubt, at the end of the most successful year I'd ever had, I had a feeling of like, I hit my revenue goals, but did I do the thing I wanted to do? And I happened to take an end of year course with just somebody I really like. And one of the assignments was, write down every single client that you had this year, and write if, who do you want more clients? Like what was challenging, what clients were challenging, et cetera, et cetera. And I had a roster of maybe like 50 plus clients. And I looked at them and I went, oh my God, every single one of these clients is an ideal client. Every single job that I booked this year was exactly what I wanted to come in. Like I did a huge thing and I swept right on past it. I didn't even realize. So even just sitting down and looking at the past 12 months, bring up your calendar and go month to month. What did I do this month? What happened here? And that will start to bring into sharper focus all of the accomplishments that you have had that maybe your mind is like you moved through so quickly you didn't even fully register it.
It's so true. I got goosebumps when you said that, because I had the exact same. I literally a week ago, I went through the exercise of write down every single thing you accomplished in 2021 that you're proud of. And I wrote the list and I'm like, holy crap, that's a long list. And oh my God, I did all that. I had so many doubts. I was like, like, what's it called? I had a lot of negative self-talk moments that I got myself out of. But like, again, like you said, it's a roller coaster. So I love that you shared with that, and everybody who's listening, literally we all go through it. So just pause and reflect. And I promise you that will like bring up your confidence of what you're capable of. And I love how you mentioned that whole roster of clients, you're like, oh my God, these are like my dream clients. I did it and I got paid for it. So this is a perfect segue to exactly what we want to focus on talking about today. So tell me off the top of your head, when it comes to like booking actual dream clients at the same time making your dream income, what are some things that come to mind that are like must-haves to get that kind of result?
Ooh, such a good question. So there are three main things that come to mind. The first thing that I think people is find the most intimidating, and in all of every person I work with, I have them do this first because I think it's the most important thing. But I have people do interviews with their ideal clients. It's okay to start with an ideal client avatar, but the avatar alone is not going to get us anywhere. And I think that's the biggest kind of tripping point, is that we really kind of the rhetoric overall in our industries is make an ideal client avatar, name them, speak to them, when really what we should be doing is sitting down, or I mean, even just a virtual meeting with a real ideal client will gain you so much information. And that is the number one thing, right? That is the thing that changed a whole bunch for me when I did maybe, I think 3 or 4 ideal client interviews when I first kind of shifted everything. And I was so scared because you're asking people for 5 minutes of their time. What if they say no? It feels really intimidating. But there are people who will say yes because they want to help other people move forward too, and recognize that they're, kind of giving 5 minutes will help a whole bunch. So it's not exactly, can I pick your brain over coffee? Like, it's not really that, but it's really, do you mind? I'm on assignment from my business coach. Can I have 5 minutes of your time to ask you some questions and insights? I would, just a really gentle ask. And some people will say yes, and it will be the most insightful conversation for your business that you'll ever have.
Yeah. And it's also a past client. So you already have so much like connection and rapport with them. And you probably did something for them that they really appreciate, which are maybe the memories that you captured for them. And they would be like, of course, oh my gosh, like, yeah, let me help you out. And it's funny that you say that, because I actually had this assignment too about 7 or 8 years ago from my business coach. And you just reminded me, because I totally forgot that I even did that. I'm like, oh yeah, I did that 8 years ago. And I found so much clarity. I was like, okay, who are my ideal clients, wedding clients from this past year? I got on calls with 2 of them, and I just asked them questions like, what drew you into working with me? What about my personality did you feel connected to? Why did you feel comfortable around me? Like questions like that. And then I realized that they just appreciated me for me. And if I just showed up more as me in my business, then I would just attract more of those like clients. So is that kind of like the same experience that you had when you did that, and when you also assign your students that?
Absolutely. It's so funny that you always end up learning things that it never would have occurred to you that people perceive you in these different ways, right? They'll give you words, if you say, what are 3 words that describe working with me? So often we get surprises back that are really pleasant surprises, things we hadn't known before. And so that's one of the most amazing things about these interviews, is that you can do them with past clients, and you can do them with future clients, people that you're hoping to work with one day. And you'll just learn so much information that will feel like an absolute surprise. But the surprises are the things I feel like where everything hinges on it. Like, that's where the shift is. If you can find a way to like be surprised in those interviews and discover new information, like that's the thing that will change your messaging, change the way you show up for everybody.
That's amazing. Okay. So number 1 was to interview ideal clients to get more clarity on who your dream clients actually are and what they're looking for, right?
Exactly. And you can do that in a 2-pronged approach. You can interview the past clients and ask them about their experience working with you, and say, what made you choose me over people who are doing similar work in my field, and find out new information that way. You can also interview just ideal clients that you haven't worked with and ask them, what's your experience with photography before? Did you like your photos? What didn't you like about your photos? And you'll learn a lot of information there too. So number 1 is actually talk to the people that you want to be working with instead of making an avatar. Number 2 is, what is your special sauce? So this is huge for me, because I think everybody has a special sauce. I think a lot of photographers especially go, there are a million photographers in the world. How can I possibly stand out? But everybody has something that they're really uniquely qualified with. So learning what that is, and that can be a matter of finding it out over time, or you already know what you're doing differently and you can lean into it now, but really putting that into words for your audience that's clear, that really demonstrates for them what makes you special, what makes you unique, for them specifically is a huge game changer. It's that special sauce when you can really refine it, then you can leverage it into charging higher prices, because when you do something that nobody else does, or when you do a thing in a way that nobody else can do it, people will pay the money, they'll pay your prices, whatever they are, right? If they don't have the money, they'll go find the money because they see what's really unique about you in the world and they want it.
Yeah. And I love that you say that. And actually, it's funny because I think a lot of people that are listening right now, a thought that's either subconscious or conscious that's popping in their head is, yeah, but I don't think I'm that special. Or if there's literally thousands and thousands and thousands of photographers, how can I really figure out how to do something differently? And sometimes it literally just comes down to even just your energy, because there could be two photographers side by side, both their images and their editing style look so similar, and their offer could be the exact same price point. Packages could be the same, everything. They could be from the same city, but for some reason, couples or whoever will choose that photographer over that photographer. And there's always going to be a reason. And so one thing that I love is that always coming back to the point of there is no other human like you in this world. And that is the differentiator. If you have doubts about everything else, it's like, at least you can always remember that your energy is a unique blueprint that no one else has. And no matter what, you will attract people to it.
Exactly. And there's always something. Exactly what you're saying all the time. Like, photographers are like, there's nothing special about me. I'm just, blending in. But then we dig a little bit deeper. We go deeper into their personal history and their personal story and their motivations. And all of a sudden, all of this amazing, unique stuff starts to shine and starts to come out. And it's always there. I have complete faith in that every single person has a special sauce.
That's amazing. And what would you say is your special sauce that you discovered on your journey?
For brand photography, my special sauce is really that I love high concept editorial photography. So I can take a brand and really build their vision in the way that it's sitting in their head. I can take it and bring it and make it come alive in photos.
That's so specific. That is so specific. And just the way you articulate that, and you got so clear on your messaging, I'm like, oh my God, dude, can I hire you right now? Can we make up a concept for my brand images? Like, it just makes me excited because it has just, you could tell there's your energy behind it, your passion, because it's very aligned with what you think you're here to do as a photographer. And on top of that, you explain the result that someone's going to get, and you explain that it's custom. Like, it's just beautiful. Like how you just stated it in one sentence. So impressive.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
And then, so for number 3, what is a must-have for the third part of it all?
So number 3 is you take number 1, you take number 2, and you use that to start to bring the transformation into the world. Right? You have a deeper understanding. Number 1, you have a deeper understanding of who your ideal client is, what motivates them, what challenges them, what pain points they have to overcome. And with number 2, you figure out how your special sauce can uniquely support them in overcoming those challenges and moving forward and making that change. So number 3 becomes then really highlighting the transformation that you're going to make for other people. And a lot of that sounds very like philosophical and really wonderful, but also that's like sales. Like, you learn how to sell, but you do it in a way that feels good, because I think the old way of selling, the very like pushy bro marketing way, I think does some well in some industries, but especially for creative industries, we really prefer something that is heart-centered, that feels transparent, that is in integrity. So really, to achieve that, highlighting the transformation of how you're going to take people from point A to their goal, point A to point B, or whatever the better. But really just talking to people in a very straightforward and clear manner about, this is the transformation that I'm facilitating for you. Here's where you are now. Here is the challenge in front of you that's keeping you from your goal. So here's how we move through that together.
Amazing. And I like how you said that it doesn't feel salesy, because you're literally just there to be like, okay, I see where you're at. I see your problem. I'm really excited. I have the vision that I think will make you so happy. And you literally just share that vision with them. And then they just say yes or no to working with you. Right.
Exactly.
It could be as simple as
Exactly.
that. And like, do you have any examples of like a way that you could explain like highlighting a transformation for someone that maybe you're on like a call with to see if they want to book you? Could you give us
Yes.
a couple examples so people can kind of imagine it more?
Yes. So the number one thing to focus on when it comes to highlighting the transformation is features versus benefits. And once you understand features versus benefits, like you guys will be unstoppable. So here's how I like to kind of illustrate that. Okay, so if you're listening, if you're watching, close your eyes for a second. We're going to do just like a small exercise. But I want you to imagine that it's like a Friday night, work week is done. You're going to go sailing with a loved one, right? And you show up at the marina and it's the perfect temperature and you step onto the boat and you set sail on the beautiful ocean with this beautiful sunset, and the sky is changing from yellow to orange to blue to pink. And the air just smells so salty and fresh, and it whiffs through your hair, and you're holding a nice cold drink and just so deep in that moment of perfection and contentment and abundance and just general happiness. And in that moment, you're not thinking about what kind of nails did they use on this boat? What kind of finish did they use on the wood? Or what are the sails made of? Right? What you're thinking about is how present you are and how much you're enjoying this trip, this journey, right? Yes, so you guys can come out of the exercise for a moment. So when you're talking to your clients, there are features and there are benefits of your offer. Features do not sell your offer. So for example, if you are a photographer, everybody has some kind of package that has so many hours, so many photos, so much editing. Everybody kind of is the same in that. So you're not going to sell anything based on those offers, on those features. What you sell is the benefits, right? So back to the boat, you're not selling a boat based on it's got this kind of wood, it's got this kind of, whatever fun boat features are. You're selling based on enjoy that moment with your loved one on the ocean as the world falls away and you just enjoy the sunset and the moment and feel good in life, right? And so it's the same for your offers. Don't sell based on features. Sell based on the benefits. So for photography, for example, if you're trying to sell like a high ticket offer and work with a brand or a solo entrepreneur who is looking for like to go big, to go high level, and that's your goal, one of the ways to talk about your benefits, for example, is the way that you help people save time, because people at that level have more money than time, right? So they're trying to buy their time back. So one of the things I like to lean into, a benefit, for example, is about, I like to give you a vault of images that you can reach into at any point and pull out what you need. You don't have to spend time thinking about it, scrolling for it. And beyond that, I help with shoot production the whole time. So you don't have to worry about location scouting, anything like that. I take as much off your plate as possible, right? So my benefits really highlighting the fact that I'm leaning into, I save you time. You spend the money, but I can save you time. And that's what's really valuable there. So that's just one way to think about, how do I take the benefits of what I'm doing and use that to support the experience that my client is going to have with me, because that is a lot of the transformation people have, right? One thing that's super common is I feel really awkward in photos, and maybe that's the big challenge. So then my benefit is not necessarily, I don't want to say, well, then we're going to give you 4 hours of photography. Like that's not really, that's a feature, but it doesn't do anything for somebody who doesn't like being in front of the camera. Instead, I talk about the benefits of the pre-planning session and how we break down past photos of them and help them be less scared of what it is to be in photos, explain what happens in a photo and with a lens, and kind of shake out those nerves a little bit, right? So leaning into the benefits is what will transform your entire sales process, the way you talk to people, the way you book people. It's super, super powerful.
I love that. And for an example, so I loved your example for branding photography, because I know there are photographers that listen to this that are headed in that direction or are in that arena. So I'll give an example for wedding photography, since that's what I'm specialized in. So the way that I noticed that, the way that I kind of think of it in my mind is I I share the experience that I'm going to create for them and what emotions they're going to feel, which is basically the benefits, right? The benefits that Paige outlined, they made you feel a certain way. They made you feel an emotion, right? And when you feel something and that makes you kind of not really care about the price tag as much, that's how people overspend, right? And that's how we can raise our prices and make the money that we want to make, right? But so mine is very simple. My benefit is because I'm a documentary wedding photographer, I say pretty much all you have to do is be present on your wedding day, enjoy the day as it unfolds, and I'm on the sidelines documenting it as it unfolds. You literally don't even have to worry about photos. It's not a photo shoot. You're just living out your day how you want to. And then they're like, oh, I get to just be free on my wedding day. I don't have to actually pose in front of a camera. Like, yes, I want that. And that's all. That's all I have to say. That's the only picture I have to paint, and it freaking works.
That is so exactly that. It's speaking to that freedom that you're giving them, and you starting to understand that comes from like those ideal client interviews where people start to tell you like, my priority here is kind of freedom and just not having to worry about where the lens is, but just being myself. Like, I just want to be myself and not worry about it. Like, that is an amazing benefit.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I love this conversation. Okay. I want to take the conversation now to talking about money and charging, right? And how to align your rates with the experience that you're creating and the benefit that you're creating for your clients. So this is such a huge topic, and we could probably have 10 separate podcast episodes about it to like dive into all the specifics differently. So I'm just going to kind of like tune into my intuition, or actually my intuition is telling me to ask you, like, what comes up for you right now, Paige, that you feel like you could share about how to gain more confidence to charge what you actually want to charge and actually make it happen?
Yeah. Oh, that's such a good question. I think I would tell people that the price isn't actually the problem. I think a lot of us have it in our heads that like, oh, my prices are too high. How are people going to pay them? But when people tell you, it's not in my budget, or, I just can't do that right now, it's often not actually the real reason. What they're really telling you is, I haven't seen the value in the thing that you are offering me, so therefore I can't conceptualize paying that money for it, right? Because when people understand the value that you bring, that you uniquely bring with your special sauce, they will pay the money. That if they don't have it, they'll go find it, they'll borrow it, right? And it's because what we offer, can't be replaced by anything else. But making sure you demonstrate that, talk about that, give proven results, really, it's weird to say prove it to people, but really show people that you can back up what you're saying you can do. That's where those pricing objections really start to fall away. So I want people to know that the price isn't actually the problem. If people are giving you that objection, I would go back to your sales conversation and say, how do I need to demonstrate more clearly what I can do? And I do want to be clear, like, budget does become an issue. I mean, after so many years of like crying about rent checks, budget is very, very real. I don't want to deny that in any sort of way. But I do think a lot of us who are charging, things that aren't high ticket or want to be high ticket, or we have a thought about what high ticket is, and it's really, it can be peanuts to some people. Like, there are people who I get on sales calls with and they don't even ask the price. They just pay the invoice. And that's kind of an amazing experience, but it brings in a lot of perspective that, it's not necessarily, pricing isn't necessarily the problem. What we need to do is go deeper into what you uniquely offer and how do we bring that in the world, and how can we demonstrate that for people in a way that they actually feel like, yes, this is the right person. Yes, this person can offer me the transformation that I'm looking for. I trust that they'll bring me the results that I'm looking for.
Yeah, I love that.
Would be the number one thing. Yeah.
I love that explanation. And the way I kind of see it is, if you go deep enough to do the work of knowing exactly what you offer, the benefits of what you offer for who that is, right? And that it's aligned with who you are as an artist. If all those things come together, it's like you've built this incredible, strong foundation in your business that then you can just keep slowly raising your rates. And people just keep booking, and you're like, oh my gosh, like that has been my experience. Like, I'm at the point now where I was like 5 years ago, I was like, I don't even know how I'm going to get there, but my dream is to book like weddings at like $7,000-8,000 averages. And now I'm literally ranging from $7,000 to $10,000 per wedding. And it's all because I've had this foundation built. I haven't changed anything really in the last 4 years since I've like really discovered this and implemented it. But all I've been doing is raising my rates, and people just keep booking and booking. And one thing that I love is actually two things that I think are really important to remember is never assume what someone else will spend based on what you would spend and your money situation. That's number one. Number two, there are proof points all around us all the time in the world that there are people that are willing to spend money on what they want, like luxury brands, luxury cars, not even luxury, like just things that are like maybe Aritzia clothing. Like there's so many proof points about that. So if you just figure out how you can bring the value to that ideal client, then you will feel so much more confident in charging, and then charging what you want. And you'll actually, like Paige says, get full rates on a regular basis, right?
Exactly. It's exactly that. It's that don't assume what you're willing to spend is what you're hesitant to spend is what other people are going to be hesitant to spend. And the other thing I see creatives do is I'll have creatives come to me all the time and say, yeah, I had somebody inquire, but like, I don't think they're going to spend a lot of money. And I have to stop them and say, you don't actually know that. And you should never assume that. You have no idea what anybody's willing to spend. And the second you put that kind of assumption on it is the second you start losing money in your business. Like, don't assume what people are going to spend.
Yeah. Do you have any stories or example, like a story of when you were just like so surprised? Like,
yes, that's so funny. I think I would say, one of my biggest clients, when they first reached out, the person who was doing somebody was reaching out for bids from different photographers. And when they first reached out, they actually reached out from their personal account over Instagram. And so when I first saw the DM, I thought, oh, this looks like a personal account. Like, I don't think this is like a business. This doesn't seem right. I don't know if I should spend time on a sales call with this. That could just be like a waste of time. But I said, you know what? Why not? I have the time. Like, let's just see what happens. And it turned out they work for this huge corporation that spans across the country. And they hired me on 3 different jobs. And I even got to travel with them and set up these huge shoots, multi-day shoots for them. And charge more money than I've ever charged for photos at that point. And I almost did not respond to that DM because I made an assumption that oh, this person I don't even think is in business. Like, you just never know.
That's incredible. Oh my gosh. I have a similar story. So I got an inquiry for a wedding where straight up in the inquiry, and I very rarely get this, they're just like, straight up, our full wedding budget for the entire day is $10,000. And at the time, I think my main wedding or my lowest wedding collection was like $6,800 plus tax. So I'm like, I could have easily just like been like, right off, like whatever. But I'm like, no, Sarah, like everything else that they said, like, I'm like, oh my God, they're pretty much my dream client. I'm like, why not just like try? Like everything else matches up so well. So I treated them like I would any other inquiry that felt like a really good match. Right. And I just like wrote them back everything. And then they wrote back saying, you know what, like we value, again, what do? They value photography. That's where they're putting their value. We value photography so much. And you are literally like, the photos that you capture are what we imagine, and how we get to be on our day is what we would love to experience. So we want to book you. And I was in shock because that with tax and everything, it came out to like $7,500, and they spent 75% of their wedding budget on photography with me. And
wow,
right? Because amazing. Their whole wedding budget was $10,000. So again, just a beautiful example of how if you just show up, talk about the value, you never know, like you could get that booking.
Oh, I love that. That's such a great story. What a perfect example.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay. So is there anything else that you feel like you want to share on the topic of, booking dream clients for like full rates on a regular basis? Anything that you feel is that we missed or that you are super passionate about talking about?
Oh, this is such a good question. Okay. Okay. Yes. I
It's
feel
so
like there is
funny. I could
something.
see I could see you right now being like, there's so many things that I just want to talk about and I'm so excited about. And you're like, how do I choose? How do I choose in this
I
moment?
know. How do I choose? So, okay, what would if I could tell people overall one thing?
Yeah.
I experienced, and there are so many days where I still experience a ton of doubt around who I am in this industry, what I do, what I make. Is it enough? Is it, am I meeting my standards? Am I meeting other people's standards for my work? I think about that a lot. So I experience a ton of doubt. I've always kind of been that way. Stepping outside of myself, the times when I was able to go, okay, I don't know if I can do this, but I'm going to try it anyway, were some of the most valuable experiences that I've ever had, whether that was taking on a big client that I was really nervous about. And, what if I can't do this? What if I totally fail? Spoiler alert, I did not fail. But whether it's taking on a huge client that made me really nervous, or just deciding, I'm going to assist and learn, and feeling like, I'm going to be in that position of learning for a long time again, which was hugely beneficial. Whatever that decision was, to step outside of myself, to step outside of my doubt, those have always been such incredibly valuable decisions. So I would recommend people, like, whatever you think you're capable of like at least 10 times more. I've sat down with, photography wise, I've had conversations with at least 100 plus brand photo clients, and then dozens and dozens of photography mentees. And almost every single person that I talk to underestimates what they're capable of. Because I talk to people and I talk about the big picture. If you imagine you're 90 years old sitting on your front porch watching the sunset, and you're thinking back on your life, and your life went perfectly to plan. Everything you wanted to happen happened. What did that look like? What was the big picture there? What was the sweep of everything in your life and all of your accomplishments? I ask people to name that, break that down. Did you host a conference? Did you speak on stage? Did you write a book? Like, what did that look like? And a lot of people kind of cap their expectations for themselves that, like, I'd like to write a book one day. And I'm like, you can do that in 6 months. How do we go bigger here? Right. And I can see that about them. That's a special sauce that I have, is I can see what makes you extraordinary in the world, even if you can't see it. And I think people walk around just constantly underestimating themselves. So whatever you think you're capable of, take for the minute the possibility that you might actually be capable of 10 times what you think, 100 times what you think. And if that's the case, what can you do now? Who should you speak to? What should you put out in the world? Go on that. Assume that you are capable of that, and then move from there. I think that would be my number one advice.
Oh, that was just so powerful. Thank you for that. That was it's so true. I love how you just like broke it down of how any person you speak to underestimates themselves. And I think that's just a natural human trait as we grow and evolve, because every next step is something we've never experienced before. And it's like we're experiencing growing pains. And another thing I think that keeps us stuck in that place of underestimating ourselves is also not knowing the how it's going to happen, how we're going to be able to achieve it. But that's not up to us to know, because what we really need to focus on knowing is what we want and why we want it. And then the how shows up every single day in small little pieces, right? Because how boring would life be if we knew how everything was going to happen? Like, if you knew how you met the love of your life ahead of time, if you knew how like you were going to get that big client that you've always dreamed of getting, like if you knew every single thing play by play, like it would just be, life would be so boring. So it's kind of like part of the excitement, right?
Exactly. Like, the how is a mystery to everybody. And I've worked with a lot of like multiple 6-7 figure business owners, just understanding their business to create photos for them. And almost none of us know what we're doing. I mean, there are people who are obviously really successful at it, and it's not that they didn't have knowledge or skill, but basically what happens when you start a business is you have about 20 paths in front of you, and any one of them could be the path, right? And 2 of them could be the path, 3 of them, but you never know which ones, and you have to start walking down them. And the other thing about these paths that nobody tells you is that there's no lighting and there's no direct, you can't see more than 2 steps in front of you. It's so hard. And so trusting yourself is really trusting yourself that you can keep putting that one foot in front of the other, and whatever your decisions you're making, being willing to see them as lessons if they don't work and indicators if they do work of what to lean into, instead of judging yourself on that path and going, why did I trip over that? Why did I trip over that? We all did. We all started down those paths, not knowing what to do. None of them were well lit. We were all in that confusion, and keep going down that path. Don't assume that you are going to do it wrong. There are no wrong moves here, right? Like whatever decisions you make, you can either learn from them or lean into them, right? You can either fail and figure out how to do it better, or you can do it better and be like, great, let's do more of that, right? So I think also being willing to like do the trial and error situation, like be willing to fail at some things. It's going to happen, and that's okay. Every successful business owner has failed at something. Like,
so
all
many
of us
times
behind the scenes are kind of just like guessing at what that next step is a little bit.
Yeah, totally. I love that you brought up the paths. And like, I know that my listeners right now are thinking, okay, but how do I figure out the next step in this dark path? How do I like flash the flashlight and see the next step? And what I find works really well for me is asking really good quality questions. I think I forget who says the quote. I think it's Stephen Covey. He's like, the quality of your life is determined by the quality of the questions you ask yourself. Mm-hmm. So if, let's say you want to, let's say you want to be a really successful brand photographer that makes multiple six figures a year. Let's just say that's the thing, right? Mm-hmm. So you're like, okay, that's the path I want to take. That is the path I'm choosing. Now, how do I figure out the next step? So maybe ask yourself, okay, what would future me that already has that success, what would they be doing? How would they be acting? Who would they be connecting with? Like, ask yourself those questions and then take those actions. And then, as Paige said, you're going to fail along the way. So yeah, reach out to that photographer you want to shadow or mentor with, get rejected, reach out to the next one, get rejected again, reach out to the next one. Oh shit, they actually said yes. And then that's how you keep getting clarity. Right. So oh my gosh, this has been
it's so true.
Yeah.
In speaking of like the photographer that I assisted for 18 months, who was like one of the most incredible mentor, when I applied to assist for her, I never in a million years thought the answer would be yes, because there's so many other people applying. And I just like, I was mind blown that I would get to learn from her in such an like tangible, deep way. And anyway, yeah, you never know. You might get a bunch of no's, but then there's going to be a few yeses in there that just change everything. And you got to trust that those are coming, because they are coming. Like there's no reason they shouldn't come down your path.
Yeah. Yeah. As long as you are in action, you will get there. And eventually it could be 2 months, it could be a year, it could be 2 years. And in the scope of things, that's not a lot of time. So that's amazing. Oh my gosh, this has been such a energizing, powerful conversation. I am a nerd when it comes to talking about all this stuff. So it's been so fun to like bounce the conversation off of each other. And I learned so much from you as well. Like I love how you refreshed my memory about oh yes. So let me actually recap just for everybody, because I'm like, whenever podcasters do recaps, I'm like, oh yeah, that's good, because I can like tie everything together. So I think the 3 things that you mentioned that are important to do in order to book your dream clients at full rates consistently is number 1, interview with those ideal clients. Number 2, find out your special sauce and pretty much announce it to the world, share it with the world unapologetically. And number 3, make sure to highlight the transformation you will be providing for your ideal clients through sharing the benefits as opposed to the features. So that was a little recap there. And so Paige, let everybody know where they can find you on Instagram. And I also know that you have an incredible mastermind. So please also let everybody know where they can sign up and what they can learn from you in the mastermind.
Oh, thank you. Yes, you can find me on Instagram at Paige Ray Creative. And my mastermind is called the Creative Mastermind, and it is for all types of creatives. If you have a one-on-one service-based offer, that's who we work with in the program, because you're basically going through those steps, no matter if you're offering coaching or web design or photography. You're starting with, who is my ideal client? How do I understand them deeper? How do I take what I can do really well and make sure that it supports them? And then beyond that, how do I make sure that everybody knows about it? Everybody understands that transformation. So we go through all of that in the program, but really I find that like creating a community and offering transparency within that community about pricing, money, sales, bookings, understanding that like the difficult experiences you're having are other people are having them too. And when you can walk through them and give that kind of transparency to that and give that kind of support and guidance out of those like kind of deep woods where the path is really, really, really shadowy, that to me, I feel is really powerful. So yes, the Creative Mastermind is basically to help people make money as creatives. That's my ultimate goal.
That's amazing. And where can people find the info for the mastermind? I'll link it in the show notes, but just for those who prefer to hear it directly from Paige, let people know where they can find it.
Sure. You just go to paigeray.com and it is right there in the navigation.
Awesome. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. Oh my gosh. Thank you, Paige, for taking the time out of your incredible life and business situation. That didn't make sense. I'm like, life and business situation. Thank you for taking the time to show up here for us to connect and for you to share your wisdom from your life experience with all my listeners. I'm sure they're all just so appreciative right now. So thank you so much.
Oh my gosh. No, thank you so much. And I'm always happy to take time from my life and business situation, which I think is an excellent way to describe it.
Oh my God. I feel like if we connect in the future again, it'll be like, so how's your business situation? How's your life situation going? That'll be our little inside joke.
Perfect.
All right. Thanks, Paige.
Thank you so much, Sarah.
Yay! Thank you so much for hanging out with me and tuning into this episode. If you got value out of it, please feel free to message me on Instagram at Sarah Monica Photo. That's Sarah no H, Monica with a K, photo, to let me know. I get so freaking energized hearing from others that what I've said has had a positive impact on their lives. Also, make sure to hit subscribe to the Shine and Thrive podcast to never miss an episode. I'm so grateful for you, and I'm sending you all the productive vibes your way so you have the best week ever.